Hi, and welcome to our video version of our Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceOverTraining.com podcast. And if you've ever thought about podcasts, well, this video is for you. This is part one, where Heidi talks with Caroline Slaughter. And part two is going to be with Dante Hodge. He's going to talk about the technical side. But first up with Caroline, they talk about the journey of her own successful podcast, finding your voice through podcasting, what you can gain as a podcaster, as a voiceover actor, and a whole lot more. So let's get to it.
Caroline, I am so happy to have you on the podcast. The first podcast that you created was Racket Inside the Gold Club. And I don't even know if I ever told you about it, but I loved that podcast. Like, I listened to it, and then I don't think it was until halfway through that I realized, or maybe it was at the beginning, that I was like, wait, Caroline Slaughter did this? I know Caroline. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I just absolutely loved it. But what led you to start creating podcasts like that?
So it was during the time of COVID when everyone was sort of leaving live action and leaving set to create something that they could create during a pandemic. And thankfully, someone had broached me with the idea of audio storytelling right before COVID hit. And I was thinking about it, and I came into the company, School of Humans, which is the production company I work with on most of my podcasts, with a couple ideas for pods, because they had a slate with iHeart. And then when COVID hit, iHeart's like, let's go. And so they wanted to make a podcast of mine called Astray, which was about these men that disappeared on spiritual quests in India. But they said, to get your feet wet, let's put you on a podcast we already have greenlit. And that was Inside the Gold Club, which, as you know, Heidi, is about the most infamous strip club in Atlanta that was run by the mob. And it was really interesting because I really, got to dig in and interview these sources and talk to, people that were very involved in some illegal activity, and sort of figure out how to hold these conversations, but also sort of feed the entertainment factor of limited series, narrative driven, which is like very story based podcast.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. It was really sort of COVID.
Yeah. And where did the idea for Astray even come from?
I'm a seeker, so really into sort of figuring out why we're all here, and I think during COVID those questions got even more enhanced. And so I was really looking into like spirituality and all these things, and then I started to find these stories about the underbelly of spirituality, the dark side of it. And there are these stories about these three men who disappeared in the same place in Rishikesh, India, within a couple, maybe 10 years of each other. And I was like, this is suspicious. And so during COVID, which I would never suggest to anyone, I found an investigative journalist in Delhi, and we sort of went all into these stories and started
Wow.
interviewing people on the ground there, figuring out what was going on, interviewing the family members that lost their boys. They were all boys. But then during, I think the fourth episode had launched, and I got an email from someone who said I would have been one of those boys if my parents hadn't flown halfway around the world to save me. And that was the last three episodes, which is Charlie's story, which we're now turning into a documentary. So I
Yeah.
think that's sort of how podcasts, these sort of audio storytelling stories can sort of become something bigger. They can be the baseline for something that becomes more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually will talk more too about, what that's resulted in for you. I wanted to ask more about the brainstorming process for this. Now that you've been in it a little bit, would you change the way that you brainstormed before for these? Like, it sounds like Astray came from just like something that you felt in your heart that you wanted to kind of lean into and learn more about. Is that still what you would do today, or is there some different things that you would add on to that? Does that make sense?
I think I'm a filmmaker who had to become a journalist really quickly.
Mm.
And I think what I would do differently is really sort of not tell the story as it's unfolding. Like, there was so many pieces unfolding as I was recording. And yes, that's exciting. It was sort of like the time of Serial when people were doing that. They were sort of letting these stories unfold. But for me, not being a journalist, I wasn't really prepared for that, both emotionally, because there's a lot on you. And especially with families that have lost children, like, they're depending on you emotionally. And I wasn't prepared for that. So I think what I would do differently is, one, probably not tell a story that's that dark, or, like that would be that visceral to me. And then 2, I think I would prepare it more. I think I would do all the episodes and launch them, and then if there was anything following up with that, then I would do that at the tail end. But I think just doing it as I went was exhausting, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it sounds exhausting. Is there any advice that you would give for someone that may be listening right now and are like, I mean, I kind of would be interested in doing a podcast, but I'm not sure even where to start as far as like coming up with an idea or what would the topic be? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of have been lucky in that I feel like these stories have sort of come to me and I felt like I had to tell them, you know? And I think my advice to voiceovers, which I assume a lot of people listening right now are voiceovers, is if you want to do a podcast, do it because you really are invested in a story, like I was with Astray and like I was with Tom Slick, which we'll talk about later, or do it because there's something you have a fan base, which you guys have at Atlanta Voiceover Studio, or do it because there's something commercial about it. There's something
Mhm.
that speaks to a larger audience, but it also has a unique perspective. For example,
Mhm.
I was listening to 2020 because I am a true crime junkie,
Yeah.
and they were talking about this case and they mentioned a podcast about this couple that sort of delved into the case a little deeper, and they had a podcast, and the wife was basically the one who looked at the cases, the true crime cases, and the husband paired the case to a beer. So it was like
Oh, wow.
wherever the case took place was a region of Michigan, and he paired
Yeah.
that with a beer in the region, and sort of the palette of the beer matched sort of
Mm.
the region and the tonality of this case. And it's very unique, and the true crime genre is obviously quite commercial, and so they found something. They found something that was, like, zeitgeisty. So I would
Mhm.
say if you want to do a podcast, like, do something that's unique, that you're interested in, and that really, like, matches your voice, not only as a
Mm.
voiceover actor, but your voice as a storyteller. Another
Yeah.
one's, like, Call Me Daddy, which but she's now making millions of dollars, but she started because she was interested in speaking about women's sexuality, but also, like, she had sort of a peek behind the red carpet with A-listers and, like, what happened in their rooms, and so she had a very unique perspective, and then it opened up. But I think a lot of people are like, I want to do a podcast and talk to my friends about voiceover or the industry or whatever. But, Amy Poehler can get away with that, but I don't think very many people can, because you have to have either that fan base listening like y'all have, or it's like you have to have something specific and unique that will catch fire, and then you have advertisers that want to pay you for it, you know?
Yeah, totally. Which actually that I think that brings up a great point, a great question to maybe ask is what are you hoping to get out of podcasting? Because there may be some people that are like, yeah, I want it to catch fire. Like I would love to make a ton of money off my podcast. And then other people may be like, no, I think this is a great way to like hone my skills and all that stuff. So, what are some things that you feel like you've gained from creating and producing and directing these podcasts?
Sure. I think directing the podcast, because I directed some phenomenal talent, not only in Atlanta, based talent, but, Owen Wilson, and Sissy Spacek. I learned a lot about, I mean, after I directed them last year, I was like, okay, I need to get back into voiceover more regularly, because I saw these, Owen specifically, these titans of the industry work. And I was working with him. I was reading with him and directing his performance. And I was like, okay, I've learned from this
Mm,
experience. I think directing the phenomenal talent here, in Atlanta, like, being able to learn from directing helped me as a voiceover actor. Just like they say when you're acting that you should work with a casting director and read with talent so you can learn. It's a lot like that. But also, I think for me, podcasting has helped me own my voice as a storyteller, because it's really hard to write a scripted version of a story. I mean, as a screenwriter, I rely on visuals so much, and you can't rely on that. So you have to, it's very calculated. Like,
mm,
every word means something, every sound design has to provoke something. So it's very, yeah, calculated storytelling, which has helped me a
yeah,
lot in my screenwriting. And
yeah.
then for me, I mean, every podcast I make is so I can make something else. So it's like it's intellectual property for a TV series or for a feature film or for a documentary. And that's been my incentive, that's why I got into podcasts. But then I grew
Mhm.
to really love, it's such a great way to work, and also the teams I've worked with podcasting have been exceptional, you know?
Yeah, I think you may have already answered this. So if you feel like, yeah, that it's just what I just said, then just say that. But because I think that the reason why, of course, I wanted to have you on the podcast, one, because I just adore you, but also because I think you have such a great insight into this as a voice actor, as a creator, as a podcaster. Like, you've done all these things. You've done the interviews on podcasts, but you've also scripted podcasts. Like, you have such a great just body of work to pull from. And so I was wondering if you had any specific insight, specifically for voice actors, of like how could podcast help them and in their business as a voice actor?
I guess it is sort of finding their voice as a storyteller, like,
Mhm.
also finding their voice. It's interesting, when I did Astray, I had a voiceover friend of mine direct me for my first couple of pods because I needed to find that, like, true crime, sort of gripping, but slow and steady voice that was not on my repertoire as a voiceover. I was doing, like, voiceovers for Holiday Inn, like,
Yeah.
as, like, sort of a young mom voice, and so I had to really find that voice, and now that now I'm hired consistently for that voice for a
Mm.
lot of narrations that I do. So,
Hmm.
I think, 1, finding your voice and how does that become a calling card. I will say, though, if a voiceover wants to start a podcast, like, it's hard to be like, "Maybe someone will notice my voice from this,"
Right.
because, I mean, Keith Morrison from Dateline has that, and, like, Sarah Koenig from Serial.
Right.
Like, people will reference their voices, but it's very hard, I think, to do that. That
Hmm.
said, I think you find your voice, and then what I do is I'm like, "Hey, so I have this podcast, Astray, and I think it would really work well for this mystery narration." Then it's a
Hmm.
selling point, and they have something to listen to. So it's
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And then the other thing is, I think for a voiceover actor specifically, finding if you're interested in storytelling like you are, Heidi, it's like finding your voice as a storyteller. How
Hmm.
are you going to unravel this story? How is it gripping for your audience? How does it speak to your audience? What is your why? Like, and if you have that inkling to want to tell stories, then ultimately it will help you. And also, I know as a storyteller, it's also helped me in a lot of commercial reads because I can sometimes understand what the director or writers are going for and sort of help them get there if they're open to it. So
Right.
it helps you overall with the idea of script writing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes, totally. And I do want to circle back to that in just a second. But first of all, casting, I think one of the things that I hear all the time from people that just get started into podcasting is they go, "Oh my gosh, it's so much work. It's so much work." And you and I both know that that is absolutely true. But is there anything that you've found
Mhm.
as far as like workflows or, apps or anything like that that's helped save you time with podcasting?
I'm the worst because I haven't. I just learn on my feet.
That's okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the script
Right.
is great, and you can probably explain too what that is, but it's basically every interview goes into a transcript and then you end up just basically using it like you would write. So you copy and paste the interview and it will edit the audio for you, which has been a
Mhm.
game changer. It makes things go so much quicker. I actually use that for Slick too.
Oh, nice.
I would put
Yeah.
everything into the script, and then my audio engineer and composer and sound designer, Jesse Neiswanger, would take that and sort of make it gorgeous.
Yeah. And how did Tom Slick even come to be? Because you had done more like interview journalistic type podcasts, and I know you've done, you're award winning filmmaker. But how did it then go into Tom Slick?
So Tom Slick, my sister came to me with that one because she knew the Slick family. They, like, spent some summers together in the mountains of North Carolina, and she's like, "God, this family has the coolest, like, great uncle. Like, he's
Mm.
just so amazing. You gotta hear about him." And she started with sort of the pitch of he hunted the Yeti for 5 years, 1958. And I was like, "What? Who is this guy?" But then as you start to dig, he has, like, these scientific institutes in San Antonio that are his legacy, and, like, one of them discovered the Pfizer vaccine that helped vaccinate us for COVID. And just, like, this legendary persona, but also this eccentric character. I mean, he was friends with Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life. He was friends with Howard Hughes. he dated starlets, and I mean, not only hunted the Yeti, but looked for the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. And he just sort of lived this very wild life. And not only that, but he also gave back to humanity. So I was like, okay, this is a real life Indiana Jones. He was a huge explorer. And so I was like, let me dig into his story. And I thought I was going to do it as a nonfiction and just sort of tell the story of this man. But then the more I was working with Jeb Stewart, who wrote Die Hard and Vikings Valhalla, and that's sort of how he sold it, was Jeb was going to take the reins of this and make it like the next Die Hard. And so Andy Samberg signed on, the actor, and we sort of crafted it with his voice. And then he had something that was too similar. So then Owen Wilson jumped in, which is great because he is Tom Slick. He's a
Yeah.
Texan. He has an earnestness and an optimism to his voice, and it was wonderful. But I think when Jeb signed on and then Andy got on, it was automatically like, well, this is not a nonfiction anymore. This is a
Right.
huge scope story. And iHeart was like, we want a movie, you know? And so, and then it leads to whatever this now TV series is
Yeah.
going to be.
So then, because of all this, I mean, you're already in talks right now with Astray and with Tom Slick. That's led to other things, right? How much can you share with that about that? I didn't even ask you ahead of time if we could do
No, it's okay.
mention
I
that.
mean, they really are in the stages of development. So it's like writing the outlines, getting decks ready. Our industry's at a little bit of a standstill right now as people figure out what this sort of next generation of TV and film is going to look like. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, but hoping to pitch in the fall. So it's really now taking, like, especially with Astray, it's taking, I'm not copying that story. The documentary's sort of copying the last 3 episodes, putting it into visual form. I'm taking themes from Astray and an idea of people and characters, and then I'm crafting a totally new story.
Okay.
So, you know, I think you can use podcasts as a starting point to create a world and a feeling and discuss themes, and then you use that to launch into something else. But Slick really is sort of taking the idea of the man and sort of really dramatizing it, you know, and making it almost not even him as much
Right.
anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Taking the idea of who he is, mostly just the character, and the heart of him, and then making that into a TV series.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, we have to talk real quick because I just completed a class by you called the Script Incubator class, and it was so wonderful. It's one of the best
Thank
classes I've ever
you.
done. It was so, so great. And because it, I mean, I'm assuming because it went so well, we all like were so like, Caroline, you got to keep doing this. This is so good. But you're doing another one as well, right? When does that start?
It starts July 15th, I
Okay.
think. It's or around there, like mid-July.
Okay.
I'm hoping because my schedule's so crazy, so I'm trying to
Right.
fit it in. But I want to
Yeah.
do it again because I loved it. I got so much out of that class as well, just
Yeah.
working with you guys and discussing my favorite thing, which is storytelling,
Mhm. Yeah, it
you
was
know?
so good. So if you're listening to this and you're like, gosh, yes, I want to dig more into storytelling, then we'll put the information about Caroline's class in the show notes so you can reach out there. And then also, if you're interested in like some one-on-one consultation, she is busy, so it's not like she may not be available for a while, but we'll put her email in there and you can reach out to her too if you're interested. One of the things that Caroline's so good about is really helping people flesh out ideas. Like she even mentioned at the beginning, like what would make sense commercially, but then also what makes sense from your own specific voice. And so, if that's something that you feel like you could really use a guide for, she would be amazing at it. So,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us on the podcast. We so appreciate it. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much. We can't wait to see what comes next.
Thanks, Heidi.
Well, that's part 1 of podcasting for voice actors with Caroline Slaughter. The next one, part 2, is going to be with the engineering side, and Dante Hodge is the one we're going to talk to about that. We'll have that coming up soon. Now, before we get out of here, I just want to quickly mention we've got something called the VO Mentorship Membership. If you're struggling in your voiceover journey, we're here to help. Heidi and I wanted to just find an easy way that we could help people that would be inexpensive for you, but still worth everyone's time. And the biggest thing that people are getting out of this mentorship is in the Discord chat. Everybody is so supportive of one another, and Heidi and I are in there all the time answering questions, and we've got some of our engineers helping out, and some of the instructors chime in in from time to time as well. It's just a great supportive group. We get to answer your questions whenever you need them, plus a monthly Zoom session that you could join us, and of course, video courses that you could go back and watch from all the past Zoom sessions. Here's a video to explain it more, but check out the VO Mentorship membership at atlantavoiceoverstudio.com, and we hope to see you in there.
Have you spent a bunch of time going through voiceover training only to now feel lost and not sure what your next steps are?
Or maybe you had a little success and started booking some voiceover jobs feeling good, but then it died down a little, and now you're unsure about how to create that long and sustainable career.
Or wish you had a support group to inspire you, hold you accountable, and answer those ever-elusive industry questions that come up all the time.
Well, we've been in your shoes, having to try to figure it all out in pieces here and there. So that's why we want to introduce you to the Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceOverTraining.com VO Mentorship membership.
I know, like you need another membership, right? Yeah, we totally get it. But listen, the right one can make all the difference in a business.
Yeah, the reason we wanted to do this was because so many people go through training, get demos, maybe learn about voiceover from video courses like our own, ProVoiceOverTraining.com, or other places to train.
But when it came to actually putting it into practice and building a business, it felt overwhelming, confusing, and for some, maybe you, paralyzing.
Yeah, we could have created a workshop or class for this and it would have been worth it, but we wanted a solution that was for talent, that was just more affordable, convenient, and valuable.
We also wanted to be right there with you, helping you along the way as much as we could.
So before we jump into what the monthly mentorship membership covers, let's talk about the extras first.
Members will get first access to sign up for Industry Pro workouts. These are virtual small group opportunities to read for agents, casting directors, or creative directors, receive their feedback, and get to know them better. And we only have 15 spots for each, so they fill up quickly.
And you get $20 off Industry Pro workouts as members. The mentorship membership is only $25 a month, so if you love doing the Industry Pro workouts anyway, the membership basically pays for itself.
And on top of the Industry Pro workouts, we'll also occasionally give members discounts to training and other offerings.
And those are just the bonuses. Each month you'll get
professional training modules. These are live Zooms we'll host monthly along with industry expert guests, and topics range from industry insights, business strategies, performance, and more.
A resource library, a collection of past Zoom sessions, scripts, audition prep guides, tech setup guides, and reference materials for different genres.
Toolkits. These are downloadable resources like vocal warm-ups, exercises, and script breakdowns to build a solid foundation in voiceover.
Plus, and this is a biggie, you'll have access to our private community message board where you can ask questions and get support. Now, we built out this membership to grow with you no matter where you are in your voiceover journey.
So we hope you'll join us. Take the next step toward a rewarding voiceover career with mentorship that grows with you. Join today for only $25 a month.